Hey everyone, you're on Reddit Reveals. Let the story play out, and afterward let me know in the comments whose side you're on. The chair between us stayed empty for 6 hours, and she never once asked me to sit there. She stayed glued to his side the entire night, shoulder to shoulder, knees almost touching, laughing at things that weren't funny. Every time I shifted in my seat, she leaned closer to him like gravity worked differently for them. It was a charity poker night at a rented hall. Loud, cheap beer, bad lighting. The kind of place where people pretend to care about causes just to drink, without judgment. She said it would be good for us to get out. Said we needed to be seen together. But once we got there, I might as well have been invisible. He was already sitting when we arrived, some guy from her gym. I'd seen him once or twice before. Big hands, loud voice, way too comfortable. She sat next to him without thinking, like it was automatic. I took the seat across the table and waited for her to notice. She never did. They shared drinks. She laughed with her whole body, throwing her head back. She touched his arm when she talked. He whispered in her ear more than once. I watched the clock. Watched my chips disappear. Watched my wife act like I wasn't there. Quick note. While you're listening, tell us which city or country you're watching from. At some point, I got up to use the bathroom. When I came back, my chair was pushed back farther, like someone nudged it out of the way. She didn't look at me, didn't ask where I went, didn't ask if I was okay. Then it happened. She shifted in her chair, crossed her legs, and something slipped from her lap. A small sound, metal on wood. The ring didn't fall straight down. It rolled, slow, quiet, like it wanted attention. It spun under the table, bounced once against his shoe, then rolled all the way out into the open floor. Right between us. Her ring. She saw it before I did. Her smile died instantly. Her face drained so fast, it scared me. She froze, hand half raised, like she could still stop it. The table went silent. A couple people laughed, thinking it was a coin or a chip. He leaned forward to look. I stood up before anyone else could move. I walked around the table. Every step felt heavy. I bent down and picked it up. It was warm, like it had been hiding. She finally looked at me then. Not guilty, not sad, panicked. You weren't supposed to... She started, then stopped herself. I didn't say anything. I just slid the ring onto the table between her and him. Then I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the exit while everyone stared. I didn't go home that night. I drove around aimlessly for 2 hours, ended up in the parking lot of some 24-hour diner off Interstate 490. Sat there with the engine running, staring at the ring in my palm, like it was some kind of cursed object. I didn't even know if I was angry yet. I felt stupid, hollow, like someone had reached in and scooped everything out of me while I was busy watching from the sidelines. You want to know the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. There had been signs. Small ones. A different perfume, phone, face down, more often. Random gym sessions she never used to care about. But I brushed all of it off. Because marriage is supposed to be solid, right? It's supposed to mean something. You don't start accusing your wife of cheating just because she starts jogging. So I convinced myself it was nothing. And that night, watching that ring spin across the floor like it had a mind of its own, it wasn't shock I felt. It was recognition. I knew exactly what I was looking at. The truth finally stopped hiding. Around 2 a.m, I texted her, just said, I'm okay. Don't wait up. She didn't reply. Not that I expected her to. I imagined her still sitting there next to that guy, maybe pretending to cry so he'd comfort her, maybe blaming me. She always had a talent for flipping things around when she wanted to. The next morning, I came home around 9. She was in the kitchen like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just thrown 7 years of marriage in the trash. Her hair was wet from a shower. She had that harmless housewife look on. Sweatpants, no makeup, fake calm. "I didn't expect you back so soon," she said, not even looking up from her coffee. "You didn't expect me at all," I replied. That made her pause. She looked up then, measured my tone, realized this wasn't going to be one of those arguments she could charm her way out of. "Can we not do this first thing in the morning?" she said. I dropped the ring on the table. It clinked once, then rolled in a slow, lazy circle before stopping in front of her. "You left this on the floor," I said. "Next to him." She didn't touch it. Didn't even flinch. Just stared at it, like it was radioactive. "I took it off because I didn't want to lose it during the game," she said. "Is that what you're going with?" She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "You were supposed to be sitting next to me. That's your seat I left open. You gave it up. You were shoulder to shoulder with him all night. We were playing cards. You were playing me." We both stood there for a second, neither of us speaking. Then she turned her back to me like I was boring her. "He's just a friend," she muttered. "He was there for me when you weren't." That hit harder than I expected. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, but I just stood there, jaw clenched, breathing like I'd just run a mile. "I work 60 hours a week. I pay for everything. And you're out here getting comforted by your gym buddy?" "You think money is everything?" she snapped, finally turning around. "You think just because you keep the lights on, I owe you loyalty? You haven't touched me in 6 months. You haven't asked how I feel, what I need. Because every time I do, you're glued to your phone or some emotional support guy with abs." She grabbed the ring off the table and threw it in the sink. It clattered against the metal like a bullet. "I'm not happy, Curtis. And I haven't been for a long time. You checked out before I ever did." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because I'd heard that exact sentence on a podcast the week before. Some therapist explaining how cheaters justify it to themselves. "The other person checked out first." I stepped forward, just enough to make her back up slightly. "So what now?" I asked. "My gosh, you want to work through it? You want counseling? Or are you already halfway moved in with that guy?" She hesitated. That was all I needed to see. "You slept with him," I said, voice flat. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She stared at the floor. I could practically see her brain spinning, trying to come up with the right mix of guilt and self-preservation. But nothing came. Just silence. So I walked out. I didn't slam the door, didn't say a word. I left it wide open behind me. I stayed at my brother's place that week. Told him I just needed some space. Didn't mention the ring, the poker night, or the guy with the fake sympathy smirk. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud yet. Like if I said my wife cheated on me, it would become official, like carving it in stone. Tanner, my brother, could tell something was off, but he didn't press. We watched football, drank cheap beer, and talked about everything except my marriage. Honestly, I appreciated that. I needed to exist in a world where she didn't. But that didn't last long. On Thursday morning, I woke up to a text from her. "I booked a session for us Saturday. Couples therapist. You said you wanted to fix it. I'm giving you the chance." Fix it? Like it was a broken faucet? I didn't reply. I wasn't ready to sit in a room while she cried to a stranger about how I made her lonely while she played house with some clown from her fitness class. But Saturday came, and like the spineless idiot I am, I showed up. It was a beige office in a plaza next to a nail salon. The couch was too soft. The tissue box was already half empty. She sat on one end, arms crossed, like a teenager dragged to detention. I sat on the edge, ready to bolt. The therapist, Deb, Looked like she'd seen this movie 1,000 times. She asked us what brought us there. Jenna didn't even hesitate. We've grown apart. That's what she opened with. Not, I cheated. Not, I broke his trust. Just that generic, neutered phrase, like we were two coworkers who stopped carpooling. I clenched my fists, but I kept my mouth shut. Let her talk. Let her build her version of the story. Deb nodded. Curtis, do you agree with that? I finally looked at my wife. I think Jenna's idea of growing apart involves taking her wedding ring off and getting cozy with a guy named Lucas while I'm still sitting at the table. Her face flushed instantly, like I slapped her. That's not what happened. Deb blinked. Lucas? Her gym friend, I said. The one she leans into, laughs with, takes her ring off for. I already told you I didn't sleep with him, Jenna snapped. It was flirting. I made a mistake. You're making it into something it's not. You sat next to him all night like I wasn't even there. I left my seat open and you filled it with someone else. That shut her up. Deb held up a hand. Let's take a breath. There's a lot of pain here. Yeah. No kidding. Then Jenna leaned forward. You want the truth? Fine. I liked how he made me feel. He looked at me like I was worth something. You stopped doing that years ago. My mouth went dry. I wanted to scream, I looked at you every day like you were my whole entire life. But I couldn't. I just stared at her, at this stranger I somehow married, and realized she believed it. She really thought this was my fault. Deb started in with some speech about rebuilding trust, but it was just noise. I couldn't focus. I kept seeing that ring on the floor, the way she looked at it, like it had betrayed her. After the session, she followed me to the parking lot. I'm trying, she said, voice soft now. Can't you see that? No. I see you covering your tracks. That's not the same thing. She looked like she wanted to cry, but nothing came out. I waited a second, hoping for something real, something human, but all I got was silence. I got in my truck and left her standing there with her arms wrapped around herself, like she was the victim. Back at Tanner's, I sat in the driveway for a long time before going inside. She still hadn't said the words. I cheated. Not once. And I started wondering if maybe in her head she actually hadn't. The next time I saw him, Lucas, he wasn't at the gym or sneaking out of some parking lot. He was at my house, yeah, on my porch, drinking coffee, sitting on the steps like he owned the place. I was driving back from work a little earlier than usual. Tanner had finally talked me into grabbing the rest of my stuff from home. Said it was pathetic, the way I kept circling the block every night, deciding not to go in. So I caved. Figured I'd get my tools from the garage, a few boxes, maybe my winter boots. Nothing major. I didn't even tell Jenna I was coming. But there he was. Hoodie, sunglasses, calm like it was no big deal. At first I thought maybe I had the wrong house. Then he turned his head and made eye contact. Gave me this little nod like, yeah, I know who you are. I parked in the driveway without turning the engine off. For a second, I just stared at him, thinking maybe he'd get the message and leave. But he didn't move, didn't flinch. So I stepped out. You lost? I asked, walking up slow. He smiled, didn't stand. Nah, just waiting for Jenna. It took everything in me not to swing, but I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. You're real comfortable hanging out on another man's porch, I said. He took a sip of his coffee. She told me you were separated, that you're staying with your brother. My hands clenched. I nodded slowly, biting the inside of my cheek. Right. So that makes this okay? She invited me over? You want to take that up with her? I laughed once sharp. You think she's going to catch you when you fall? That's what this is? You're the new hero in the story? He didn't answer, just looked at me with that same smug calm, and then the front door opened. She came out with her phone in hand and froze when she saw me. "Curtis, I didn't know you were coming." Clearly. She glanced between us, clearly panicked. Lucas was just, "Don't. I don't need the script." And Lucas finally stood up, stretched, like this was just another casual morning, and stepped past me. Didn't say a word. Just gave me a look. The kind that says, "You lost." I watched him walk down the driveway and get into his car. Jenna turned to me. "Why didn't you call? You can't just show up unannounced. It's my house." Her eyes narrowed. "We talked about space." I stepped inside without asking. Grabbed a box from the hallway and walked toward the garage. "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to get my things and leave." She followed me like a shadow. "You're blowing everything out of proportion." That wasn't what it looked like. "You said you wanted to fix this. And now he's having coffee on the steps?" "He just stopped by to talk. Cut it out." I dropped the box by the tool bench. "You're not confused. You're not lost. You made a choice." She went quiet. Then, in a small voice, said, "I didn't sleep with him." There it was again. That same tired line. I didn't even flinch this time. "Stop worrying about what makes it technically cheating," I said. "Start worrying about why I don't care anymore." She didn't follow me after that. When I walked out with 2 boxes in my arms, she stood in the kitchen, staring down at the counter like she was trying to convince herself she was the one who got left behind. And maybe she was. I told myself I was done. I told everyone I was done. Tanner, my coworkers, even my mom. They all asked the same question, "Are you sure it's over?" And I gave the same fake confident answer. Quote, 1. But then I found myself checking her Instagram one night like some dumb teenager, just scrolling through pictures I'd already seen, looking for something, anything. Maybe a post about regret, an apology, a hint she missed me. But nope, just filtered photos of coffee, sunsets, gym selfies. Like nothing ever happened. But the photo that got me wasn't one she posted. It was one she was tagged in. Some group shot at a bar. 6 or 7 people smiling at a booth. And there she was, sitting next to him again. Lucas, their shoulders touching. Her hand on his knee. A small detail, barely noticeable unless you zoomed in. Which, of course, I did. Because I'm pathetic. That hand told me everything I needed to know. Whatever she claimed before about space, confusion, therapy, it was all a smokescreen. She'd already moved on. I was just the paperwork she hadn't filed yet. The next day, I filed for divorce. I didn't even tell her. I let my lawyer serve the papers. I wanted it clean, fast, silent. No big speeches, no dramatic fights. Just done. She didn't respond right away. I figured she'd either call and scream or show up crying, but instead, she went quiet for 3 days. Then, on the 4th day, she showed up at Tanner's. I was in the driveway changing the oil in my truck when her car pulled up. She stepped out slowly, wearing that same oversized hoodie she always used to steal from me. Her hair was up in that messy way I used to love. I barely looked at her. "Curtis," she said like we were in the middle of a normal conversation. "I didn't stop working." "You shouldn't be here." "I just need 10 minutes. Please." Against my better judgment, I stood up and wiped my hands on a rag. She looked nervous, but not guilty. Just unsure. That same confusion she always fell back on when things didn't go her way. "I got the papers," she said. "Didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I said nothing. "I thought we were going to try to fix it. I thought you were just mad." I finally met her eyes. "You sat next to him all night like I didn't exist. You've been sitting next to him ever since." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let a tear fall. Maybe she thought if she looked sad enough, I'd crumble. Maybe I would have. A few weeks ago. I didn't want this, she whispered. Yes, you did. You just didn't want the consequences. She stepped closer. Curtis, I messed up. I know that. But I didn't think you'd actually leave. I don't know what I thought. That's the thing. She never thinks. She just moves, impulsively, selfishly, and expects everyone else to keep adjusting. You made a choice, I said, and now I'm making mine. She looked down at the pavement, breathing like she was trying not to break. He's not who I thought he was. I almost laughed. Of course he wasn't. They never are, but I didn't say that. I just nodded once and turned back to the truck. You should go. She stood there a second longer, like maybe I'd stop her. I didn't. She got in her car and drove off, and I didn't watch her leave. 2 weeks after she left my driveway, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then it rang again. Same number. I finally picked up, more annoyed than curious. Curtis! The voice on the other end wasn't Jenna. It was a woman, nervous, breathy. I'm sorry to bother you. My name's Amber. I don't know how to say this exactly, but I think you and I have something in common. I didn't say anything. I'm Lucas's girlfriend, she said. Now that got my attention. Turns out Lucas wasn't some free agent floating around the gym charming married women for sport. He had a girlfriend, a live-in one, for over a year. Amber had no idea about Jenna. Not until she saw a message pop up on his iPad while he was in the shower. Then she started digging, and what she found, apparently, was enough to make her sick. She told me they'd been on and off for a while, mostly because of his flirty nature, but she'd convinced herself it wasn't anything serious. Then she found pictures, selfies, of him and Jenna in his car outside a hotel, one of them kissing at some wine tasting event. Jenna smiling with her whole face, her like she'd won something. Amber said she wasn't calling to start drama. She just thought I deserved to know. I thanked her, hung up, and then I just sat there, staring at my phone, wondering how far this rabbit hole went. Jenna had played it all down. Flirting, she said. Emotional mistake. But now there were hotel pictures. Lying to me was one thing, but lying to someone else's partner, that hit different. I didn't even bother calling Jenna. I forwarded the photos Amber sent me straight to her. No caption, no warning. Just let her open them and sit with it. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. Text after text, then a call, then another. I didn't answer any of them. Eventually, she sent one final message. Please let me explain. Explain what? That she was even worse than I thought? That the guy she replaced me with had a whole girlfriend the entire time? That she'd been so caught up in her fantasy escape from lonely wife syndrome that she didn't care who she hurt? I didn't need an explanation. I needed distance. But of course, she couldn't let that happen. That weekend, she showed up again. This time at my work. I was in the back lot behind the shop, taking a break when she pulled in. Her eyes were red, makeup smeared. She looked terrible. I know you hate me, she said, voice shaking. But please, just let me say what I came here to say. I crossed my arms, said nothing. I didn't know about her, about his girlfriend. I swear to you, Curtis, he told me he was single, that they'd broken up. Kind of like how you told me you just needed space. She winced. I didn't expect to fall into anything. I wasn't looking for it. I was lonely. I was lost. And he was there. Yeah. You said that part already. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I ended it. The second I found out about her, I told him to get out of my life. I've been a mess ever since. I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't have anything to say, because I didn't trust myself not to lose it. You think I don't know I screwed up? She continued. You think I don't wake up every day wishing I could take it back? I miss you, Curtis. I miss our life. I looked at her, this woman I once promised forever to, and all I could think was how far we'd fallen. She waited for me to speak, begged me with her eyes. All I said was, "You should go." She nodded, tears finally falling. Then she turned and walked away slow, like she was hoping I'd change my mind before she reached the car. I didn't. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. A week after she showed up at my work, she emailed me. Yeah, emailed. The subject line just said, quote, "to." That was it. Like we were negotiating a lease, not ending a marriage. I sat there for a while before opening it, expecting some last-minute plea or a guilt trip about memories, vacations, our first apartment. But it wasn't that. It was a list, a literal list, of things she wanted to divide fairly. Furniture, dishes, some electronics, and, get this, the espresso machine she never used but now apparently meant something to her. Like she suddenly discovered an emotional attachment to a kitchen appliance just because she wasn't in control anymore. I didn't even finish reading it. She wasn't sorry. She was reorganizing. Like our marriage was just a storage unit she'd outgrown. Later that night, Tanner and I grabbed drinks, and I finally told him everything. The poker night, the ring rolling across the floor, Lucas on the porch, the hotel pictures, the fact that I was so angry I didn't even know where to aim it anymore. He didn't interrupt. Just let me talk until the beer was warm, and my throat was raw. When I finally stopped, he looked at me and said, "You know what I think hurts you the most? It's not that she cheated, it's that she kept choosing him after she got caught." I hadn't even thought of it like that before. But he was right, the betrayal was bad enough. But it was the after that kept me up at night. The way she acted like I broke us. The way she let that man, some gym clown with a jawline, stand on my porch while I was still wearing the bruises of her decisions. I thought back to that moment in the charity hall, when she sat next to him all night without even glancing at me. That empty seat between us? That wasn't accidental. That was her making a choice right in front of me. And now I was supposed to split the furniture like that choice hadn't shattered everything? No. She didn't get to walk away with my coffee machine. I wrote her back the next morning. Short and to the point. Take what you want, just leave the ring. I'll decide where it belongs. I hit send before I could second guess it. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want closure. I just wanted to stop giving pieces of myself to someone who'd already sold hers to the first man who made her laugh at a bar. The final papers were set to go through in 10 days. I didn't know what I was going to feel when that happened, but I hoped, truly I hoped, that I'd never have to see her again. The divorce went through on a rainy Tuesday. It should have felt heavy, like the end of something big, but honestly, it felt like I just closed the door to a room that had been empty for years. I signed the papers, turned off my phone, and drove straight to the cabin my uncle left me upstate. No cell service, no internet, just trees, silence, and the kind of cold that made your breath visible and your thoughts loud. I needed to reset, for real this time. 3 days in, I finally slept through the night. First time in months. No dreams, no jolting awake thinking I'd heard her voice. Just peace. By the time I drove back into town, something in me had shifted. I didn't feel broken. I felt done. But here's the thing about life. Even when you think you've walked away clean, reality has a funny way of sending updates. I ran into Lucas at a gas station. Didn't even recognize him at first. He was leaning against his busted Jeep. Hood open, phone to his ear, looking terrible. I was inside buying coffee when I noticed him through the window. Normally, I would have walked right past without a second glance. But then he turned, and I saw the face. And I saw the limp. When I stepped outside, he hung up and noticed me. His expression changed quick. Tried to square up like we were about to throw down, but I wasn't there for that. I just looked at him, calm. "You all right?" I asked, knowing full well he wasn't. He exhaled hard. "Blew the radiator. Been a rough week." "Yeah," I nodded. Heard you and Jenna didn't last." His jaw twitched. "You talked to her?" "No. But people talk." Turns out, Jenna didn't take it well when Lucas backed off. Realized he wasn't ready to play stepdad. Wasn't built for anything more than hotel rooms and cheap wine. She tried to hold on. Said she left her marriage for him. He told her he never asked her to. She snapped. Called his job. Harassed his ex. Tried showing up at his apartment. Full meltdown mode. According to someone at the gym, she even got into a screaming match in the parking lot with another woman she thought he was seeing. Turned out to be his cousin. Messy. Lucas didn't confirm any of it, but he didn't deny it either. I just smiled and took a sip of my coffee. Well, man, best of luck with that. Then I got in my truck and left him standing there next to his overheated Jeep, drenched in regret and rain. But that wasn't even the best part. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Amber, the girlfriend he cheated on too. We kept it light after our first conversation. A couple check-ins, nothing serious. But this time she asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. Said she owed me a proper thank you for being honest. We met at a cafe downtown, and I'm not going to lie, she looked good, calm, strong, like someone who got burned and learned how to walk through the fire without flinching. Conversation was easy. Turned out we had more in common than just betrayal. We both liked old movies, hiking, hated pineapple on pizza. We laughed more than I expected to. Before we left, she said, "You know, I thought I'd never trust anyone again after what he did, but talking to you, it doesn't feel heavy." I knew exactly what she meant. We didn't make any promises, no big romantic endings, just two people who'd been lied to, finally finding someone who didn't make them feel stupid for hoping. A few months later, we went on a weekend trip together. That same cabin, same trees, same silence. Only this time, the bed wasn't cold, and the air didn't feel empty. Jenna? I don't know where she ended up, and I don't care. She chose her seat. She rolled the ring away. Now it's mine again. And I'm not giving it to someone who doesn't know how to hold on. Do you think consequences always come back around? Or do some people get off too easy? Let me know in the comments. Tap like and subscribe for more stories like this one.